create music, and they put a lot of creativity, not only in the way that they do music, but also in the performance way. But it's being brought to life in very different ways, in a very creative way. And of course, creativity can be used to solve big problems, right? This is LifeSack. It's a product, I believe, created by 3 Korean engineers, and it uses thermal and UV processes to purify water in a very effective way. CB Project is a startup founded by an Australian surfer, and not your typical creative. He just got fed up with plastic pollution and trash in the ocean, and you could call it naive, but he just thought, well, if there is trash cans on land, what can I not just have trash cans on the sea? And literally, that's what he did. He just built a trash can, put a pump, put it in the water, and started collecting trash. And he made this startup based on that, and now he sells these water trash cans around the world. And there's other forms of this creativity that are closer maybe to what we are used to, but that can have very big impact. Many of you may know this project, which is the Palau Pledge, which is kind of like stamp that goes into your passport, and it's a way to get tourists to feel part of protecting the natural resources of Palau. So, that being said, and kind of hopefully getting you guys to flip and open up that idea of creativity, let's look at tech on the other side. So, we'll know it, this is no secret, right? Technology is the enabler and the transformative element that is expanding the digital canvas and is creating a lot of change in our lives and behaviors. Before, maybe we had more basic behaviors like watching, listening, reading, right? But digital platforms are exponentially growing the amount of actions and behaviors that we have. We do searching, rating, sharing, creating, Googling, reading, all these different things, commenting, and it's all about thinking and making. But there's a lot more behavioral data that we're creating. And this is creating a huge online footprint. Everything that we do on digital channels is leaving small pieces of behavioral data about how do we live our social lives in a more digital age. And of course, that huge digital footprint is creating a lot of data-driven innovation across many different industries like transport, travel, food, retail, groceries. Companies are using behavioral data and digital platforms to create entire new business. No secret for us, we are seeing it all the time. It's happening a lot in Asia, particularly in Southeast Asia. So let me show you a bit of a case study of a piece of work that we did quite a few years ago, but it was based on how do we capitalize on data to create experiences that are better for our users in a more human and organic way. Let's take a look. Cheers. So, a few years ago, before bots were all the rage and stuff, but now Nike has used AI to expand it and scale it and put it inside their shopping app. So, quite good to see it there. So, of course, lots of data, lots of technology, lots of disruption, new business models have given rise to the tech giants. We'll know them: Google, Facebook, Amazon, Alibaba, Uber, Tencent, IBM. These are companies that own massive data sets that allows them to create new services and products based on this and understand us to a whole different level. And it makes you, ask, is it too much data? And of course you can ask this question from, do they know too much about us? Which is a different conversation. But the other part of it is, and I think that it was mentioned before, is it too much data for us to be able to do anything with? And there's this quote from Christian Hammond, and he said that he's stunned by how much data we have and how little of it we use. And this is so true. Many of the clients that I've worked with, they have data, but either they don't know how to use it, they don't understand it, they don't have the technology to make effective use of it, or simply they don't have the human power and the workforce to do anything with it. And this is where I think that the combo of data and AI becomes really, really interesting. And I'll go through a few examples, and I'm sure that you guys use them and know them, maybe even without realizing that they were possible because of this combination. So when you're composing emails, now most of the company providers that offer you emails, they are using some form of AI to allow you to complete the emails or write them. Google is quite advanced in the sense that, it has agents that suggest not only the few next words, but kind of like help you to write things in a better way, right? Or say the right thing at the right moment. Of course, they have also been using AI for translation, and they switch and never gone back, right? So there's a lot of these services in place. Navigation, something that we use all the time. I travel a lot, and I don't know how my parents did it before, Google Maps and maps that allows us to navigate our surroundings. And now this is being augmented by spatial computing and AI. Travel, same thing with traveling. Now we use it for searching the best options, like get alerts for prices, figure out the best connections. We have conversational bots helping us to figure out the same thing. There's a lot of AI and natural language processing, a lot of things going on. They're just for these simple services that help us make the process easier. And of course, mobility, right? A lot of companies have started to harvest data to understand how people move. Didi, Uber, and Lyft, these are companies that have massive amounts of data, understanding how do we move and where do we go. And I think that it's not far in the future where they will become the source of research data. Where do I put my business? Where do I open my shop? They were the ones that will know where. And of course, entertainment, right? Netflix, Spotify, they use data to understand our tastes, allow us to discover new things and give us a more personalized and meaningful experience. So there's a lot of AI-driven innovation already happening and going all around the world. The funny thing is that most people don't realize it, and most people don't really have any reaction to it, right? It's tools. And there's a lot of tools being developed across many, many different things, right? The field of artificial intelligence is huge. There's deep learning, and there's lots of different things going on across many different industries that we might not know about it, but it's happening in health, transport, urban planning, many, many different things, and of course, entertaining and digital services. So these are tools, right? Very smart, useful tools that we are using on our daily basis and are becoming more and more widely used. But when we put these tools in creativity, for some reason everybody starts panicking and saying oh no, this is, my job, I'm going to lose my job, or AI cannot be creative, and why is happening, and this is, calamity for society. But I don't think that that's the case. I think that, again, it's just tools that you pair up with creativity to elevate creativity. And this is something that we have already started to see with a lot of really good applications. So style transfer, which uses GAN models to be able to take one picture style and apply it to a different picture or piece of art. Right? And that allows us to do really cool stuff, especially for social filters. It's amazing. Then Alibaba is going to the next step. So I don't know if you are aware of it, but Tmall is one of the largest e-commerce platforms in China. Alibaba owns it. And what they have done is that they have put their AI team to start creating creative prototypes of the products and the messaging for brands, and then test them across the large volume of people within Tmall. And they are able to figure out what is the best creative, with the best assets, with the best imagery, with the best messaging, and project and forecast how much money that product or that brand is going to make before the product is even made. And this has nothing to do with creators being part of this process. They can do it completely automated. Of course, it's at very minimal kind of like ranges and stuff like that, but you can start to see how AI is transforming the way that we would normally go about this type of things. This is another example of Tencent doing a partnership with Myriad. And what they have done is that they're using AI to take old films or old, TV shows and stuff like that, and insert new ads. So imagine how this is going to change the business model for content. Because then you can play older films and add new advertisers and charge for them and have these partnerships, which is insane. Many of you might know about this. IBM Watson, quite a few years ago, they used AI to create the Morgan teaser film. Very spooky, very frightening, very successful, and you could argue that, maybe Watson is not creatively knowing what he's doing, but he's picking a lot of different data and parameters to create something that actually has an impact on us. There's another one which is quite freaky and interesting from Samsung AI Lab, and they have generated deepfake models that are able to take a 2D photo, static photo, and create little videos of it moving. So it's quite funny to see, Dali and Einstein kind of like talking from a picture, but it's quite tricky at the same time. Then you have generated photos. This is a company that created hundreds of artificially generated faces. This is not real people, they don't exist. They put it online, it's free of use. You can go use it, create your own campaigns with it, and you don't have to pay for talent. So again, these kind of things are changing the way that we'll normally go about this type of content and products, right? This is one of my favorites. OpenAI is an institution that works on creating AI technologies for humanity in a safe way. This year they released GPT-2 neural model. It's actually a less powerful version because they say that they got to the point where it writes text so well that it's kind of like starting to get dangerous. And there's a very interesting piece published in the New Yorker covering the whole thing. But the interesting thing is, the model works it was trained with Reddit data, and you give it a prompt, and then it keeps writing for you. And it gets a bit, tricky. We did the same training for Cannes award entries. So we trained the model on Cannes award entries, so we give it a prompt, and then it will write an award entry for us, which is quite funny. Sometimes it gets a bit crazy and it's just ridiculous, right? But the funny thing is that in the New Yorker, they did this little experiment where they have a paragraph. They have part of it written by a human and part of it written by the machine. And they asked people to guess which was which. 90% of people failed. 90. So it's getting to that point, right? Quite interesting, and it's something to keep an eye on.
We don't exist because we were created by AI. Who am I?
This is another quite interesting experiment. It's done by Honma in partnership with DataGrid. DataGrid is a Japanese company that is creating these virtual humans, virtual faces. They have improved the technology to do face swapping and deepfakes to this kind of state. It's very interesting because for a company to go live with such an experiment at this stage, it's a bit risky and kind of like forward thinking, especially for a Japanese company. But what they have done is that they can create synthetic humans out of nothing, right? Or, well, out of like a basic kind of like form and show. But imagine how this is going to change the way companies do products, product catalogs. How do they advertise their products that need human talent? How this is going to change the industry in terms of like talent and content creation. Content creation is a big part because a lot of us do a lot of content creation. So what happens when you have AI being part of that process? Sure, Grace. I can dance to it. So this is another experiment from OpenAI. Again, it generates synthetic music, takes a few notes from existing compositions, and can write jazz, blues, classic to a pretty good level, I would say. So the point is, whether we realize it or not, AI is already more creative than we would like to think. And we're getting to this point where we can do AI-augmented creativity, right? We can use AI, we can use these technologies to enhance the creativity output that we have. And I just want to show you a couple of examples of work that we have done at RGA that leverages this idea and this concept. So the first one, I don't know if you have seen it, it's called Malaria Almost Died. And it's a partnership that we did with David Beckham to deliver a very strong message for a very important issue. Take a look.
Malaria isn't just any disease. It's the deadliest disease there's ever been.
Se dice que ha matado más de la mitad de la población que ha existido.
وما زالت تقتل طفلا كل دقيقتين. Mais nous pouvons y mettre fin. Nous savons comment, nous en avons la possibilité.
हमें और अधिक कार्रवाई की जरूरत है.
我们需要让世界领导人关注。
Hivyo tunazindua kampeni ya sauti.
Wale ambao waliopima malaria.
Speak up and say, malaria must die. One voice can be powerful, but all of our voices together, then they will have to listen. Malaria must die, so millions can live.
So again, this is around deepfakes, very polemic, being used for a lot of not good applications, and causing some stressful situations for a lot of people. But it can also be used for good. It's just a tool, and the fact that you can use it to have someone that has a strong presence and a strong influence to speak to people in a language that they can understand in a realistic way is a very powerful thing to do. Now, this is not smoke and mirrors. We work with a London company that specializes in responsible deepfake technology, and we use the voices of people that has been affected by malaria to be able to carry the message. So again, it's a combination of humans leveraging AI for a more creative and powerful output. The next one is kind of like my baby, my recent baby. I've been working a lot with Shiseido, and this is a project that we did in collaboration with the Shiseido creative team in Japan and the research department. And what we wanted to do was to take skin science and facial data and bring it together to create a very emotional, immersive experience where people could break the boundaries of time. Please take a look.
Japan is the world's most rapidly aging society. Yet, 9 out of 10 of us fear old age. What if we could help change how people feel about growing old?
Beyond Time is a time travel experience that focuses on our closest relationships to help people reevaluate their relationship with aging. We bent time so a parent could become younger than their child, so friends could grow image spaces from 1,300 data points, adjusts gate conditions and structure, then adds dynamic wrinkling in response to expressions. Conversation prompts are custom generated and designed to get people thinking about what they most look forward to about growing old.
いろんな仕事とか環境がどんどん変わってくのに2人の関係はずっとなんか変わらないみたいな。
見た目が変わったとしても、2人でこう一緒に進んでいきましょうねみたいな。
So again, of course, in the past, we can just do a film and everything's small computers, but this is real. This is also leveraging computer vision technology, machine learning, AI, to be able to read people's faces, understand your face composition, and then create a scientifically accurate, real-time, three-dimensional aging simulation that allows you to have this conversation with your loved one, with your partner, with your kids, in a way that you will never be able to do it. So that's where, bringing all this kind of like creative technology and interesting AI progress pays off and elevates the creative output that we can generate. So again, it's all about this combination of creativity and AI. And I do believe that we are in dire need of creativity. The world is hyper-connected, moves as fast as ever before. It's an information-flooded era. There's a lot of things happening. It's very hard to get messages out there that are meaningful, that are powerful. It's hard to create things that actually help people's lives. It's hard to create human-led creativity. But what if AI, instead of being a threat, and instead of being a problem, could actually be your closer partner to be able to augment, to assist, to elevate the creative process and our creativity-led output. Not only, of course, to create the most personalized, meaningful, relevant experiences, right, for services and entertainment, but also to solve the most pressing social and global issues like plastic pollution, especially in the oceans, global warming, deforestation, poverty and inequality, violence, and ultimately elevate our own ability to have a more creative and a more human future. And I think that that's where we can take this, and we are just at the very start of an AI revolution that can really help us to, elevate creativity and solutions. But before I go, I just wanted to share with you some very practical, concrete things that we have been doing. So I want to share with you 7 actions that we have been doing internally after a lot of lessons from doing this kind of work. Number 1, I would say challenge the team's creative conventions. There's a lot of conventions in our industry, there's a lot of conventions in our roles and structures. Challenge that. Push teams to think differently and go in different directions. Number 2, I think that it's massively important to nurture hybrid skills and hybrid thinking. Specialization, which in my generation was the case, you had to specialize in one thing. You're the tech guy, you're the creative guy, you're the designer. I don't think that that's working anymore. We need people that can wear multiple hats. We need people that can speak multiple languages. Younger generations are learning and studying from a lot of different sources, and I think that that's the reality. So nurturing that, helping people to have this ability to function in multiple areas, it's super important. Number 3, try uncharted team partnerships. You guys all know it, right? Copywriter and a visual guy, or art director and a copywriter. That's very traditional, right? We should be starting to look at what are the new partnerships in this era, right? What is a creative technologist partnering with a copywriter, or a storyteller partnering with a data engineer, or an experienced designer working with, I don't know, a content producer. Those kind of like really experimental different ways of doing these partnerships actually work quite well. Of course, depending on what you're doing, but I would encourage you all to push more for this kind of like unconventional partnerships. There's no question about it. You have to build some form of creative technology and data engineering. It doesn't matter if clients are taking a lot of these capabilities in-house. It doesn't matter that the sources of innovation on those fields are coming more and more from big data, big technology giants or startups. You have to have people in your work or working with you that understand these languages and can work in this way. And don't be afraid to partner if you cannot build those capabilities, but this is what is going to mark a differentiation point for companies that want to move forward. Experiment aggressively with AI tools, services, and platforms. It's becoming fairly easy for anyone without a lot of like deep tech understanding of data science or machine learning to be able to play with these services. Cloud providers like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they're exposing a ton of different services that are very easy to use. There's a lot of startups like DataGrid and many more that are providing this kind of like models that you can take and train. Same with OpenAI and this kind of thing. So experimenting with it. There's a lot of people that talk about AI, data, but they don't play with it. And this is a field that is particularly suggested to prototyping and exploring and just trying it out. Number 6, hacking traditional ways of working. Here's the trick. All these new things and new ways of doing creativity and leveraging AI don't work very well under the standard process that we'll use. Even systematic design and design engineering sometimes feel a little bit, limiting and unflexible. I think that these unconventional partnerships and these new tools and these new ways require us to be a lot more flexible and organic with the processes and the ways of working. And finally, don't work as a vendor, work as a partner. If you engage with your clients and partners in collaboration as a true partner to build something instead of selling services, this pays off. It's very hard to do this kind of innovation if you're just working as a vendor. So with that, I would like to say thank you very much for your time today.
All right, thank you very much. That was such a great talk.
Thank you, Fabio.
We will allow more or less around 2 questions because Andrew is catching a flight right after this back to Japan. So anyone who would like to ask any question, please come forward or raise your hand so we could give the microphone to you.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. We only have last 10 minutes before his Grab driver arrives.
It is a really good question. It might actually make me miss my flight.
Okay. All right.
That blows away.
Thank you.
That marvelous presentation, but we are curious about the cost.
So they're curious about the cost, Andrew.
The cost.
I think overall AI is such a wow technology.
Yeah.
But I think we're also curious about what would be the trade-off in terms of cost and ROI, I guess, for any business to get into AI.
Yeah, so definitely I think that the spectrum is huge. Thank you for the question, it's very valid. I think that there is multiple ways to approach it. And the way I like to think about it is that technology has enabled us now seeing what we can do with it to have an agent that can write word entries for us and see what we can come up with. That took a couple of guys playing with it, using some cloud instances to train it, and that's it. So it's very cheap. We did it in a couple of weeks. We didn't have even to assign a team to it, right? Very easy. So if you can leverage platforms that are already there, it's going to be cheaper for you. There's a lot of things that you can leverage from Amazon, Microsoft, and Google that are already there. They have examples, training models. If you want to do natural language processing, conversational bots, on Google Platform, for example, doing Dialogflow, literally anyone can do it. You don't need even to code, and it's very cheap. The Beyond Time project on the other side, which is Sado, that's a research and development partnership where we worked with them for a year and a half, developing all these challenges. Now, you guys might use FaceApp and like these aging kind of like filters online and stuff like that. Those companies have spent years and hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to develop those technologies. So in comparison, what we did was fairly cheap and fairly fast compared to that. And we were able to do it because we have hybrid teams with very hybrid skills, very unconventional partnerships between creative technologies and design engineers, this kind of stuff, and then you can accelerate that process. I hope that helps.
Okay, there's a follow-up question. No more? Okay.
Well, I've noticed that you're based in Japan, right? And basically, Japan is a technology country compared to the Philippines. So my question is, how would you encourage the Philippine industry or economy to shift into AI industry? Because we know that Philippines is far away from Japan comparing technology aspect.
Right. Thank you for that. Is there any Japanese people in the audience? Okay, very sorry for what I'm going to say, but actually let me tell you a secret. Japan is digitally not that advanced. I think that transportation, infrastructure, transport, customer service, omotenashi, first in the world. Digital, not that much. So the reality that I'm facing is that actually, there's a lot of newer technologies and new platforms and new AI improvements that are not being used. So you might think that it's far away, that it's difficult because you're in Philippines, but actually I think that you probably have a better chance of actually doing a lot of this innovation, because probably people here would be a lot more open to try things, right? Remember that all of these AI capabilities, most of them, you can run it on the cloud, or at the most, you just need a very powerful computer that is not that expensive to create experiences and to create ideas. At the end of the day, the data is in the cloud. You process the data in the cloud, and then you generate understanding from that. And then with that understanding, you use different technologies to create experiences. What I would encourage you, all of you here, is just experiment with it, play with it, right? If you keep thinking, it's hard to get these projects because we need the talent and it's expensive and get the funding, but if you don't try it and understand what are the possibilities, then you're going to get stuck in that cycle. And actually to try it and find the possibilities is actually quite simple and it's very straightforward. So any messaging platform that you use here, you can apply AI and start like doing little experiments and do that. Anything that is related to computer vision or like face recognition in a responsible way, or having this style transfer to generate art, experiments that you can do at any time and it doesn't require that much. And as I said before, companies are making it just easier. And why are they making it easier? Because they want the data, right? So it's a trade-off, clearly. But it makes it easier for us to use it. Hopefully that answers the question.
Maybe just a follow-up question regarding that. I think because of our exposure in the Philippines, very little, where there are a few AI technologies out there, but I think most of us get intimidated by it. Number one, of the cost. Number two, I think it's also posing a threat in our jobs, in the Filipino jobs out there. What can you say about that? And likewise with regard to, thirdly, a threat to data privacy of individuals, because AI, of course, in the perception of people, has the capacity to get through all the information about any individual out there if they want to.
Yeah, good questions, very fair points, and there is no easy answer to all of that, right? There's a lot of context. In terms of like jobs, I would say that, the thing is, jobs that can be done by AI at this point are jobs that will hopefully generate other kind of jobs. So, for example, let's take a very simple thing, the case of warehouses, right? Amazon, for example, right? They now use AI to control the robots that do all the sorting of a lot of the packaging. Before, that was done by humans. Now it's done by robots. But on top of that, you have a whole new series of jobs that were needed because of that, right? In terms of like helping the robots or building the pads or sorting things in a different way or doing a lot more of the digital kind of aspect of that. So I would say that yes, it's true, right? With any revolution, any industrial revolution, any change, there's jobs that are going to be replaced by machines that are capable of doing those jobs. But at the same time, the tools should enable us to have more skills and being able to tap into different jobs and different kind of things like that. And in terms of, what was the other one?
Data privacy.
Data privacy, so that's the thing. AI works with data, right? We need data. The data needs to be secure and responsible, right? Any AI that taps into data needs to do it in a way that is responsible and that is protected. So where do you put the data and how do we use AI to consume that data is massively important. We are seeing a lot of conversations about Facebook and like bigger companies and Google and all this kind of stuff. Very important for us. I think that the main thing for me is the data that we have has a value. We need to understand the value of our data so we can trade with it. So as long as, I think it's more on our hands to understand what is the value of our data and where do we put it and what are we getting in exchange, rather than be a little bit lazy and say, oh well, someone else has all my data and they have to figure it out. Right? I think that we are getting to the point where AI actually might enable us to be more in control over data. Imagine a world where you have your own AI agent that is dealing with all these digital services and is controlling your data for you. That's quite interesting.
All right, thank you very much for that wonderful talk, Andrew.